Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 2 of my Inktober process. We're actually going to jump right into it today. I wanted to get right to the pieces because this video is probably going to be shorter than my last one because a lot of these processes took a lot shorter because I already had a lot of these in mind and I was able to execute them really quickly. So day 8 was frail. I wanted to go with something that showed frailness in a more pure sense rather than a sad or melancholy sense. So I wanted to go with a theme that I've seen a lot of artists do, but I wanted to do for myself, which is the theme of ribs. I find ribs really interesting because they protect a lot of our most vital organs, but they can break pretty easily. And I thought that sense of frailness could be reflected in a lot of people, and I wanted to put the flowers in there to show that, like, the ribs are something that's very important and they protect things that are very delicate, but they are still delicate themselves. And this was also a great way for me to incorporate colored pencils. I wanted to have that clear divide between the ink and the pencils with the colored pencil flowers on the bottom. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this piece. I really enjoyed drawing the flowers, and you can see I'm still sticking to that indirect theme of, bones and flora and things that are very delicate and things that are very misunderstood in the sense of bones, because a lot of people are scared of that, but bones are actually very delicate. They're also a part of nature, and I think the mix between flowers and any sort of bone or skull is a very good mix because they really complement each other, because flowers are very delicate, they're very feminine, while bones are very tough, they're what protect us, and they're considered kind of masculine. They're also considered kind of scary, but they go together really well with these kind of soft, delicate flowers. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this piece. It gave me a lot of creative liberties. It let me go through with a composition that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I've been kind of inspired by in the past, because you do see a lot of pieces like this, but I did get the chance to put my own twist on it, and overall I had a lot of fun with it. So day 9 actually took on the role of one of my favorite pieces for this week. The prompt was pumpkin, and I wanted to do something a little bit more than just drawing a simple pumpkin. It gave me a great time to experiment with kind of positioning, in the sense that the way the raven or the crow, or whichever you choose to perceive it as, I see it as a raven, but if you want to see a crow, then that's your artist's eye. But it gave me a chance to kind of work with positioning it on top of the pumpkin. I had a really fun time incorporating the skull into the actual body without the whole body being a skeleton. I think it adds a fun little twist to it. I really like the way the shading came out. I really like the difference between the whites and the darks. I had a lot of fun with this piece. Yet again, this whole week was very fun for me. I had a lot less frustrations with this week than I did the first week. I feel like that happened because I got very used to doing the process, and it just kind of proves that the more you go with something, the more comfortable you'll feel. And that's why I want to exemplify to people who are just getting into the community that if you're frustrated with your artwork, then you can take a break, it's fine. But if you keep going, you'll eventually become happier with your work and happier with yourself, and you'll end up with things you really like. And I think this week shows that, because I ended last week on kind of a sour note. Having a piece that I really, really didn't like kind of spoiled the whole week for me, whereas this week I have a lot of really strong pieces in my opinion, and it really made me kind of like the challenge again and make me want to continue and motivate me to keep going. So anyway, this one was pumpkin, and like I said, it was really fun. I really, really like this one. I think it's my favorite of the week, and I hope you guys like it too. So day 10 was actually one of the prompts that when I looked at ahead of time made me want to go off of an individual person's list instead of the main prompt list, because I saw the concept for a spooky Pokemon design, and I've played Pokemon since I was a kid. Pokemon is one of the reasons that I started designing characters, because I thought the little representations of real life creatures turned into things that are nothing like them in a sense, but also still can be recognized as them. I really like that concept. I've always been really inspired by Pokemon. I really like all the designs that they've come up with. I think every artist involved with Pokemon is very talented, and I don't think I've ever seen a Pokemon that I've absolutely hated and didn't respect the process of making, because there are designs that you see that you don't like, but you can respect the process of how they were made. And one of my favorite trends that came out of the Pokemon community is the trend of variants, which is where people will take Pokemon and either combine them with another one or put them in a new setting where their official design will change to match their setting. And a lot of that you can see reflected in the newer games where you have like Alolan variants, and you're going to have the variants in the new region of Galar. And I was really inspired by these variants because I really find it cool that people will go and they'll take something that's already been made and they'll make it something that looks like it could belong in the games. And I wanted to try it for myself. So I actually chose a Pokemon that I really had high hopes for, but ended up really not liking, which was Maractus. Because I really like cacti. I thought Maractus was going to be really cool. I thought maybe it was going to be an addition to the Cacnea line, or it would be as good as the Cacnea line, but it ended up just being a very forgettable Pokemon. And I was really upset about that. So I wanted to kind of work with that and create something completely new. So I ended up going with a Scarecrow, and I did a lot of concept sketches for this, which I wasn't very happy with, and it reached a point where I thought I was going to end up doing the very like stereotypical cliche Bulbasaur with a pumpkin instead of a bulb, because I like that design, but everybody kind of works with that design. So I had a lot of fun experimenting with changing Maractus from this cactus into this pumpkin-headed Scarecrow, where you have the pumpkin head, you have the pumpkin leaves instead of the cactus pieces on the top of the head. Instead of the little leg things, you have roots. Every instance of something pointy or sharp is replaced with a pumpkin leaf. And overall, I really like how this turned out, and I kind of really wish that Maractus was just something that I enjoyed as much as I enjoy with this piece. And I really like it. A lot of my concept sketches weren't really doing it for me, but when I ended up doing the final, I really, really liked it. Day 11, this was one that I really struggled with, and I was surprised because I really like making kind of creepy designs. But I couldn't think of anything for the prompt cute animal made creepy, because it's a very strange prompt to try and work with. So I ended up going and I went and I Googled, cute animals, the thing that you would do if you can't think of your own cute animal. And every cute animal that came up that I wanted to work with was something that I couldn't really figure out how to work with. I had this original idea for taking either a hedgehog or maybe an armadillo and making those spines and those bone plates be actual bones jutting out of the body, but I couldn't figure out how to execute it. So eventually, as I'm scrolling through Google's recommended cute animals, I find the sea otter. And throughout the entire process, I had also been looking up creepy animals to work with those kind of like tones that people see and those themes where they think the animal is creepy. So, hairlessness, huge teeth and claws, like huge empty looking eyes. And I noticed a lot of that was reflected in deep sea creatures, because deep sea creatures are terrifying. Anglerfish, goblin sharks, they're all horrifying creatures. And I find them really cool because these are animals that have adapted so well to the environment that they're in that they're barely recognizable as animals anymore, and we fear them. So I had this thought where what if an otter had to adapt to living in the depths of the ocean? And I made this deep sea otter. And you can see a lot of themes of deep sea creatures represented in it. It doesn't have fur anymore because it doesn't really have the need for fur. It's got this anglerfish type jaw, these big empty eyes, and I made its tail more of like the piece on an anglerfish's head where it illuminates light, and that's how the deep sea otter catches its prey. And I had a lot of fun with this because I've never really drawn an otter, but otters are really fun to work with in the body because they're very thick creatures, and you don't really realize that, but they have these general shapes, so they're not complex to draw. And overall, this one didn't take me very long at all once I got the basic sketch down, and I really, really like the outcome, even though it's really weird looking. So speaking of deep sea creatures, we're going to move on to day 12, and the prompt was a spooky mermaid. And so I went the very cliche route of doing an anglerfish. You'll notice that I did a lot of cliches this week, but like I said in my last video, it's okay to do cliches if that's what you want to draw, and if you put your own twist on it, then it's not really a cliche, it becomes individually yours. So this anglerfish mermaid, I was thinking a lot about her, and I thought, okay, anglerfish use these really bright, alluring lights to kind of attract their prey to them, but why would a mermaid have these bright lights on her? And then I thought, what if she had the bright lights in her hair, but what if she also served as a siren, which is the mermaids you typically hear luring sailors to their death. And a lot of the time in those stories, sailors are represented kind of as like piggish men. They're only after looks, they're only in it to get the woman. And I thought, what would they be drawn in by? And so I wanted to go very anatomically, where the mouth is actually on her body, under her breasts, which would be what allures the men in. And then you have this mouth right there. So it kind of shows that this mermaid can both catch fish and catch humans. And I really liked working with her jaw. It's got a kind of skeletal look to it. It has those big anglerfish teeth, and it's really terrifying to look at. And I like that I was personally able to involve this kind of cute aspect too, where she's not utterly horrifying and she's not uncomfortable the way the deep sea otter is, but she still portrays this sense of like danger and that she shouldn't be messed with. And I really liked being able to do this, and it also gave me the chance to work with a more human-esque body, which I haven't really been able to do this week or at all so far. And I overall had a lot of fun with it. I want to revisit her in the future and maybe expand on the design and have a lot more fun with her. And that's something that's really important, is you can take these pieces and you can pull them out and you can use them again and just like keep going with them. You can keep expanding on a piece as much as you want until you're fully happy with it. Or you could even make it go somewhere, because who knows, maybe she'll be turned into a character in a story that I write in the future. You can take all of these themes and all of these things that you've created and just keep going with it. And that's the beauty of having something like this, where you're kind of pulled out of your comfort zone and made to draw something that you otherwise wouldn't, because now you have this piece that you can keep going with. So day 13 is a little bit more simplistic, but it carries kind of a deeper sense of, I guess, dread than the rest of the week. The prompt was Ash, and I really couldn't think of what to do for this one. I saw a lot of people doing the Thanos snap with different characters, and I thought that was really funny. I saw people who were making different phoenixes or different animals who were going through the phoenix process, where you were reborn from the ashes. And when I think of Ash, I think of volcanoes. And when I started to think deeper into this, I remembered that when I was younger, I was very interested in Pompeii and the bodies that they found coated in ash and just completely held together because of this ash, and creating these terrifying casts of just where people were when they died. And I wanted to kind of portray this through this piece. So this piece is actually a pose that was found with one of the bodies. That's how they were found lying. And I wanted to focus more on empty space rather than filling the space. So I wanted to work with stippling specifically, because that's what in my mind closely represented Ash. So I wanted all of this empty space, and the stippling creates this shadow around this being, so you kind of know that they were there, but they're not anymore. They've just kind of faded away. And I think this piece was one of the most serious in the past 2 weeks, even though it's very simple, because it reflects an actual event where people died and they were just preserved in these casts of ash. And it's just such a tragic event, but it's so interesting to think about. And I like the way this turned out, even though it's so simple. There's nothing I would really add to it, whereas usually when I have a simple piece, I want to keep going. But just, I like the way it sits on the page. I like the way it stands out. And if you want to go simple, you can. If you just want a piece on a page where the blank empty space takes up most of the page, go for it, because it can really draw out that meaning in it and that depth and the importance of the actual piece in the center of the page rather than that dead space around it. And I really, really ended up liking this piece. It was again something that drew me out of my comfort zone. And like I said, this is why I recommend doing Inktober, because you get drawn out of your comfort zone. You get put with this prompt that you have to just roll with. And it draws into your subconscious, and it really brings out these ideas that you didn't know you had. So something I didn't mention back on day 12 is that the alternative prompt was a dragon. So I could have gone with something that was spooky like the mermaid, but I decided not to, because dragon was a prompt on both lists, and I didn't really know where I wanted to use it. But I ended up looking into the main official list and seeing the prompt overgrown, and it matched up on the same day as the prompt dragon for the individual list, the personalized list, and I wanted to work with both themes at once. So that's where this idea came out for this dragon skeleton that's just been overgrown by nature, because I've mentioned before how much I draw reference from nature taking back things that was once its own. So whenever I see pictures of skulls that are sitting out in the wild, overrun by flowers and grass, I find that very beautiful and very peaceful in a way, because nature is taking back something that it's lost. And I also really like the whole aesthetic of nature taking back the modern world, where you see buildings that are run down and abandoned, and grass is growing inside, because I love the thought of nature just coming back for what previously belonged to it. And so I'm not fully happy with this piece, but I still really like it. It's not where I want it to be, especially in the background, but the foreground has given me enough to like that the piece is still fine in my eyes. It's not at the point where Mushroom was, where I absolutely hate the piece, because I don't hate this piece. I really, really like this piece. And that's okay, because in the future, like I said, I can come back to this piece. I can maybe rework the background. I can remove the background and only keep the skull in the front. Or I can make it even more overgrown so you can't even see the rest of the body. Maybe the wings are poking out of the grass, or maybe they fall into bits and are just laying scattered around. That's something I wanted to work with, but something I couldn't really figure out how to do. And you just have to work with what you can and just go with what you can, especially with a process like Inktober, where you basically only have 24 hours to get a piece done. You gotta check yourself on your time and see what you can and can't do. And then in the future, when you have the free time, you can come back and you can reference it, and you can treat it like it's just a rough sketch or a first draft or something like that, and you can just expand on it. And like I said, that's the beauty of Inktober, is you have all these references at your hands now. You have all these pieces, which up until this day, I now have 14 pieces that I can go back and I can work with again, or I can make better, or I can make bigger, and I can just expand and fix any problems that I didn't like, because nothing's really set in stone in art. Even if you put something up on a canvas, you can then just recreate it later with differences. Now you have two pieces that are very individual pieces, but they still reflect each other. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, is you can revisit what you've done. Just because you didn't like it the first time doesn't mean you don't like it again. And even if you don't like it again, then you can just try again. You can keep going unless you really, really want to stop. And that's just the message that I wanted to convey. So again, thank you guys for visiting this week. I hope to see you next week when I cover the next couple prompts. We have Legend next week, we have Wild, we have a couple different things that I'm really excited to show you guys. I hope you end up staying around. If you want to see these pieces in their full, complete forms, you can visit my blog. I'll post that link in the description. It'll show the pieces individually, and it'll give a description about how I got to that piece. It also tells you all of the resources I used, what my sketchbook is, what my pens are, and you can learn more about me and more about my commissions and my contact information. So I'll see you guys next week.